So there's a psychological phenomenon that our mind does, and this often happens subconsciously. Like we are not aware that this is happening. And it goes by multiple different names. It can be called schemas, it can be called cognitive filling in or assumptive closure, it can be called attribution biases. Ultimately, they all have the same meaning. What it is just this mental shortcut that our brain does for us when our brains don't have the full story. So what our brains do is it fills in the blanks with the information that we don't know. So in other words, it makes these assumptions based on past schemas that we have. The problem with this is sometimes those assumptions are not accurate. Actually, more often than not, they are completely inaccurate. They are not factual. You can see how this can create lots of problems in relationships and business and in life. Welcome back to Next Level You podcast, you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you are viewing from YouTube, you'll see that I'm in a different location. Today, I am at my therapy office. I just wanted to come on and record this today because this has just been heavy on my mind lately. And it seems like it's a topic that just keeps coming up for me in multiple areas of my life. So, what better way to talk about it than on the podcast? Because I'm assuming there are many listeners out there who are also dealing with this because it literally happens to all of us. So, what I am talking to you guys about today is this psychological phenomenon called schemas or cognitive filling in or assumptive closure or attribution biases. Okay, before I dive in though, I do just want to say so, have you guys ever assumed that you knew what somebody was thinking? And then later you find out that you were actually completely wrong. And then you feel bad. You feel guilt like, oh, why did I jump to that conclusion? Or maybe I should have waited to have the whole story. Well, we've all been there. I mean, this is completely normal. This happens to all of us. This tendency is completely human. However, it can ruin relationships, it can burn bridges, and it can also be detrimental to your business if you're not careful and your business success as well. So, I want to talk to you guys all about this cognitive filling in or this attribution bias or bias and how this phenomenon can silently shape our lives if we're not careful. So, I'm sure these terms are not familiar terms to you guys. So, I just want to do a quick explanation of or definition for each of these terms, real quick. So, when I say schemas, these are really just mental shortcuts that help us make sense of information quickly. So, we have schemas for all different parts of our lives. We have schemas based on what a marriage looks like. We have schemas based on what a family unit looks like. We have schemas for, gosh, for everything. Like I'm drawing a blank on other examples, but for literally everything in our life, okay, based on past lived experiences. So, cognitive filling in or assumptive closure, this is when our brains fill in the blanks of a story that we don't fully know. So, in another term that this goes by is attribution bias. This is when we assign reasons or motives to somebody else's behavior, again, without having the full story or without knowing all the facts. So now that you know those definitions, I'm sure you can recall a time or two where, or consistently where you had done this because, like I said, we've all done this. It happens so quickly that we are not consciously aware that we're even doing it most of the time. And I want to bring awareness to this because it has proven time and time again to be detrimental. I hear it from therapy clients, I hear it from coaching clients. Most recently, I have a girlfriend that has admitted to me that, yeah, oh my gosh, I do this all the time. And that could be what's pushing away my ideal clients, my ideal customers. It's like, yeah, absolutely, that's the case. So, some examples of what this might look like, just to again give you a better idea of exactly what I'm talking about. Let's say a friend does not text you back day after day after day. So in your head, you assume that they're upset with you. But in reality, they're really just busy with work and life and motherhood and all the things, right? All the roles that they play. In our heads, we do tend to think like worst case scenario, which I mean, I think I'm a unicorn in that way. Like, I don't let myself think that way, or I try not to let myself think that way. Most of society does, though, unfortunately. Another example in business, a client doesn't respond to your email. You've reached out to them a couple of times, crickets. So you write this assumption in your head that they hate your offer, that they don't want to work with you, that they're ghosting you. But the reality is, they just haven't checked their email because life happens, life gets busy. Emails are so easy to put on the back burner. Okay. Does this make sense to you now? Do you understand how this can be so problematic in both life and in business? Yeah, it's huge. It's huge how this is a problem that happens all the freaking time. And we need to put a stop to it. Like, it's a big problem. Okay. So, the reason I'm talking to you guys about this today is because I'm seeing time and time again how this phenomenon is actually causing unnecessary conflicts in relationships and in business. What I have seen both personally as well as with multiple clients is that when we let our minds run with these assumptions, we are potentially burning bridges. And then another consequence of this is resentment builds, and then we develop anxiety inside. I mean, when you have somebody in your life personally who believes something because they're making this assumption, what I've noticed in business when this happens is letting your mind run with these often false narratives or false assumptions is damaging professional relationships. The false stories that are being created about clients are impacting how you show up with your current clients and then future clients hereafter. And then lastly, it's greatly impacting your confidence as well, because now you have this running script in your head that this client X is ghosting me, doesn't want to work with me. And so now moving forward, I'm carrying this imposter syndrome because if they don't want to work with me, who else is going to want to work with me? And that can be like an ongoing cycle that is so detrimental to your business growth. What I really want to emphasize for you guys today is that these assumptions that our mind is creating is our mind's way of trying to control the situation. But let's be honest, we really don't have control. We need to release that desire to want to be in control. We're actually trying to control uncertainty by making up these missing pieces. And so, what I want to say to that is, and this is something I'm still working on today, though I feel like I'm getting a lot better at it, but it's something I continue to work at is like, be okay with uncertainty, get comfortable in the place with uncertainty. Just learn to embrace uncertainty. Okay. When you can learn to embrace it, you are going to feel better. You are going to feel more confident because uncertainty is all around us. So we need to learn to embrace it. We need to learn to be comfortable with it instead of trying to control every aspect of our lives. So, why do we do this? Why do our brains make up these assumptions and fill in the blanks? Why can't we just be okay with missing pieces? Well, the reason our brains do this is because our brains actually crave closure. So, whenever there's like an open loop in a story or a situation, that makes our brains uncomfortable. And again, we don't like discomfort. We shy away from discomfort. And so, in today's modern world, where we are busier than ever before, busier than any generation before us has been. And with all the different roles that we play in our lives, from parenting to business owning to relationships, friendships, etc., our brains are using shortcuts to help us save energy. But when we're using shortcuts in all these different roles in our lives, again, this is so problematic to so many relationships in different areas of our life. And then you add in the factor of stress and overwhelm, something that a lot of us deal with from day to day. And your brain is even more likely to jump to conclusions when there's added stress or overwhelm on your plate. So again, we're not always aware that this is happening. Sometimes it's so subconscious that we don't even recognize it, but you can actually change that. You can actually be more aware that this is happening. So I want to talk to you about, first of all, how to catch it, and then we'll move into how to stop it. Okay. That self awareness piece, that's huge. Let's start there. What I want to really impress on you guys is I want you to just start noticing when your brain is filling in the blanks. Okay. And when you start noticing this happening, I want you to ask yourself, do I know this? Do I know this as a fact? Or am I missing information? So, going back to that example of a friend not texting you back multiple days in a row, maybe you write this story, this assumption in your head that she's ghosting you, she doesn't want to talk to you, she's annoyed with you, whatever that story is, okay? Ask yourself, do I know this as a fact? Has she given me any indication that this is factual? If that answer is no, then you're making an assumption, okay? Don't run with that assumption. I then want you to just really get curious about the situation, okay? Instead of assuming that this friend doesn't want to talk to you, what if you just got curious? What if you asked yourself, what else could be true here? That's when you could say things like, maybe she got busy. Maybe her kids are having a rough week. Maybe she's on her period this week and just doesn't want to talk to anybody. Maybe business is just slammed this week and she's struggling to balance it all. There's so many things that you could get curious about here. Curiosity in general is going to be your friend in these situations because it's going to also help you to release that control a little bit. So get curious about what else could potentially be going on here. I then want you to pause and release control. You need to accept that sometimes you aren't going to have the full story, and that's okay. You will be okay. Okay. We need to get comfortable again with uncertainty. So, accepting that you're not always going to have the full story, and you'll be okay without it. And then practicing communicating directly. So, instead of assuming, especially when it comes to relationships and business, have a direct conversation. So maybe the friend's not responding to a text. Try shooting her a phone call and just say, hey, I just want to make sure everything's okay. I haven't heard back from you. And then she's going to explain that, yeah, life just got busy, nothing personal. Okay. So direct communication is going to be your friend as well. Some practices that I just want to encourage you to put into place along with these tips that I'm giving you is journaling on this topic, okay? I would specifically answer the question, where am I writing a story without all the facts? Currently in your life, where am I writing a story without all the facts? And then again, get curious and ask yourself, why was that the assumption that I jumped to? The assumptions that you jump to are a direct reflection of what's going on internally for you. So if you immediately jump to the assumption that this friend doesn't like you, that she's mirroring to you your own insecurities. So you need to dive into that a little bit. Why would you immediately assume that somebody doesn't like you? What is that insecurity that you're holding on to? Let's dive into that, journal on that, release that. Okay. Another practice is just the affirmation of I release the need to know everything. I trust what is meant for me will be clear to me in time. Again, I release the need to know everything. I trust what is meant for me will be clear to me in time. There's other things that I want to point out to you guys is that when we make the conscious choice to not assume, what we're doing in that moment is we're actually protecting our confidence. And that's huge. You're protecting your confidence, you're protecting your peace. And even more important, I feel, is you're protecting your relationships because we can damage a lot of relationships the more we let our minds run with these often unfactual assumptions. I will say, as a business owner, when I don't let myself jump to these assumptions, to these conclusions, I'm actually more open to receiving opportunities and less likely to shut doors prematurely. I have heard from multiple friends who are business owners that when their mind jumps to conclusions like these clients don't want to work with me or these clients don't see value in me or whatever that assumption is, they are actually subconsciously shutting doors without realizing it. So they're hurting their business, current business and future business success. They're hurting. So when you can get curious about, I wonder why these clients are getting back with me, or, I wonder why, I don't know, fill in the blank, whatever those assumptions are in your head, just get curious about them and understand there's probably more going on than meets the eye. And I just want to normalize this again because we're all only human, right? So we all do this. Nobody is exempt from this. This is such a common phenomenon that we all do. But really get in the habit of training yourself to be grounded, to be compassionate, and that you are resilient. Okay. Because when we try to ground ourselves in that compassionate energy, you are less likely to jump to those negative assumptions. And I want to tie this all back to trying to be that best version of yourself, that next level version of yourself. The best version of you does not need to fill in the blanks. Okay. The best version of you trusts, she asks questions, and she moves with confidence. So she's not letting her mind run amok with all of these negative assumptions, in other words. Okay. Again, I want to really impress on you guys that you're not unique in the fact that this happens to you because this does happen to all of us. However, you can be unique and choose to be the one to not let this phenomenon continue to run your life. You can decide to take control back. You can decide, I'm going to be okay with uncertainty. It's okay if I don't have all the answers. It's okay if I'm not hearing back from people right away, or it's okay if I'm not hearing back from clients right away. There's a lot more going on than what meets the eye. By changing that inner dialogue, those assumptions are also going to change. And if that's something that you struggle with and you're a business owner like me, I really encourage you to DM me because this is literally what I do in my coaching business is I help other female entrepreneurs with rewiring their subconscious beliefs, with improving their mindset as a business owner, manifesting their desires, things like that. So if this is something that you are consistently struggling with, let's have a conversation. Let's set up a clarity call and see if I'd be a good fit for you because I guarantee this is hurting your business and your success. Okay, quick recap. We all fill in the blanks. None of you are unique in that way. We all do this. Your assumptions can cause conflict, it can cause stress, and it can cause missed opportunities, especially in your business. In general, try to be more aware of when this is happening for you. Try to be more curious about what else might be going on that you're not aware of, and try to be more direct in how you communicate in your relationships. Because practicing all of that, the awareness, the curiosity, and the communication is what's going to help to stop this cycle. In turn, you're going to ruin less relationships as well. I really encourage you guys, just in general, to be okay not knowing the full story. You can move forward in business, in life, in relationships confidently, whether you know the full story or not. So just trust yourself enough to let go of that control. So I really want to just invite you guys to spend some time after listening to this episode and reflect on one area of your life where you've been maybe consistently filling in the blanks. And I really challenge you to replace those assumptions with curiosity this week. And then if you want, feel free to DM me and let me know how that goes for you. All right. Have a great rest of your week, guys. Until next time, I will talk to you guys all next week.